We are coming to you from Globe Life Park in Arlington, Texas, where this afternoon Comcast Sportsnet presents White Sox baseball. It's Jose Abreu, Todd Frazier, Brett Laurie in our Sox as they get set to butt heads with Adrian Beltre and Jeff Bannister's Texas Rangers. Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Ken Harrelson with Steve Stone as we get set to bring you the finale of this three-game set, and it will be the rubber match. A couple of unusual games. The first one went 12 innings. We should have lost that ball game, really. They had a great opportunity to win it, but a grand slam homer by Todd Frazier in the top of the 12th. We win that ball game 8-4. Then last night, a game we should have won. We had a 5-run lead going to the bottom of the 8th inning. They scored 7 times, and they win that ball game 13-11. But this afternoon, new day, and 2 undefeated guys out there on the bump.
2 pretty good guys going head-to-head, a righty and a lefty. And the righty, there's no doubt it's Matt Latos. He's 5-0 this year. He's been outstanding. Last couple of times given up a few hits, but overall he's gotten the ball over the plate. He's fielded his position very well, and he's done just about everything. Here he makes a great play on a bunt. So Latos has done a whole lot of things right. And Cole Hamels on the other side was acquired last year, and the Rangers were thinking this year for him. Well, they were 7.5 back last year, and they wound up winning the division. Cole Hamels is just outstanding. And last time out, probably his best outing since putting on that Ranger uniform. So he's going to be awfully tough today. As you take a look at these guys head-to-head. 1-1 for Latos, 1-0 for Hamels. Hamels an ERA of 2.25, and Latos respectable 3.14 against this team.
Well, we all know that Todd Frazier has 9 RBIs in these 2 games, but other than Todd, a couple of guys swinging the bats pretty well.
They are hot, and that's for the month of May and during a hitting streak. And we'll take a look at a couple of guys that'll figure prominently. Brett Laurie, one of them, taking the ball out in center field against the Orioles. And Avi Garcia, in a 5-walk inning, he provided the muscle. A double, driving in 3, and during his hitting streak, he's been absolutely magnificent. His stroke is right where it has to be, and as you see, for the month, 313 for Brett Laurie. The 11-game hitting streak, 439 for Avi Garcia. So he's scored 11, he's driven in 9, and right now I think the Sox are going to need a whole lot of offense today against Cole Hamels. It's going to be a very lively ballpark here in Texas.
All right, we'll see how our guys can bounce back from a tough loss last night. So sit back, relax, and strap it down. White Sox baseball coming your way.
White Sox baseball on CSN Chicago is brought to you in part by Toyota. Discover more in a Toyota. Visit buyatoyota.com or your local Toyota dealer today. Let's go places. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Illinois. Through it all. Audi. Truth in engineering. And by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV.
Welcome back to Globe Life Park. It's a beautiful ballpark and a gorgeous day for baseball as Sox try to take a series on the road from the Texas Rangers. Finished their season series, winning 5 of 6, but long way to go. And let's take a look at how Robin Ventura is going to line up our Sox. Adam Eaton leading it off an even 300. Then it's Austin Jackson, Jose Abreu. Todd Frazier having a big series with Cabrera, Lowry, Garcia, Navarro, and Saladino rounding it out. The defense and how they're going to line up behind Cole Hamels, Ryan Rua, Ian Desmond, Nomar Mazara in the outfield. Then it's Beltre, Andrews, Odor, and Moreland in the infield. Bobby Wilson behind the plate, and our Lexus for swing perfection starting pitcher is Cole Hamels. Hamels 125 and 91 in the lifetime. He's 34 over 500. He's 4-0 this year in 6 starts. His ERA a terrific 2.68. And last time out, he probably threw the best ball game he's thrown as a Texas Ranger. He had great stuff. He had great location. So the umpires for the game this afternoon. Ben May behind the plate, Jeff Nelson the crew chief at first, Les Diaz at second, and Manny Gonzalez at third. So they're throwing the ball around the infield, which means we're ready to play baseball, and I'm ready to turn it over to my play-by-play partner, Ken Harrelson.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. And once again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to White Sox baseball right here with Comcast Sportsnet. So happy you could join us for the finale and the rubber match of this 3-game set. And before we show you our picks to click, you at home select yours as there's ball 1 to Adam Eaton. Adam comes in hitting an even 300 with a homer, and he's driven in 8. There's a strike. Adam 4 for 10 in the first 2 games. Sox come in hitting at .252 as a team with a 3.10 ERA. Ball's a souvenir left side.
Hamels works quickly. He's a fastball, curveball, and straight change pitcher. That fastball, well, he's probably got 95 in his pocket, but he'll pitch comfortably anywhere from 91 to 93.
Three hopper. One. All right, let's check out our picks to click this afternoon. And you see Manjo and the crew was down. Steve's going with Austin. J.J. Shearer and all the great folks at Ditka's tonight. We're going to go with Tyler Saladino.
Pick to click is starting to bunch up.
Well, we'll see.
It's a long way to go, though. It's early. It's early for the pick to click.
Oh, yeah. Austin 4 for 10 in the series with an RBI. Takes strike 1. Well, what an addition this guy has been to this, what he's meant. You're talking about somebody solidifying your outfield defense.
I know Adam Eaton gives him a whole lot of credit because he will tell Adam on occasion, you're lined up a little too close to the line, or I need you more in the gap.
Well, you got to have that. You got to have a guy out there who's the captain. It doesn't have to be a center fielder. I know when we won the pennant in '67 with the Red Sox, Yastrzemski, we had Yaz in left, Reggie Smith in center, and I was in right. And that ball is hit into right. About number 2. And one of the big reasons we won, because we didn't have the best team. Minnesota had the best team, but nothing hit the ground in the outfield. And one of the reasons by positioning, Yaz would yell at me, or I'd look at him. Get to the point I'd look at him automatically. Come on over this way. Maybe sometimes 15, 20 steps. Same thing for Reggie. He would tell Reggie where to move. Nothing hit the ground.
A very grateful pitching staff when that happens.
Oh, yeah. Abreu takes strike 1. He's 1 for 9 with an RBI in the first 2 games. Comes in hitting at .244. He did not go. That's a good technique he did right there. And you have to develop a technique. Steve and I talked about this quite a bit last year. I don't understand why guys don't practice the technique of check swings in spring training. Up the middle, slowly hit. And they don't get him.
I think Bannister's going to have another look at that.
I do too. It looked like real time. Looked like he got him.
To me, it looked like he got him by maybe a half step. Steve Buechele on the phone. Jeff Bannister wants to find out exactly how close it was at first base. With the shift, normally this would have been an easy play, except that the shift was on and the ball was up the middle, and
maybe he did beat it.
Well, they're still waiting. You see Ben May out up the first base side, waiting to see what Steve Buechele and his video crew has to say about that.
And they give him the base hit. And here's Frazier. Frazier 5 for 9 in this series with 2 homers and 9 RBIs.
Mielke's the guy that has really enjoyed facing Cole Hamels. There aren't too many guys who can say that. He's been a good pitcher for a long time. 7 seasons over 500.
Two and 0.
Outfield straightaway and very deep all the way around.
Yeah, if you'll think back, Sox came in at 23 and 11, tied for the best road record in the major leagues at 13 and 6. And one of the reasons being is we just talked, nothing's hit the ground out there too much in the outfield. And when you hit him like Ryan Rua hit that, if you didn't see that last night, you hit him like he hit it, it didn't hit the ground until it was about 480 feet away.
Well, he's enormously strong, and we saw a whole lot of that. So Rua, who gets a start today in left field, was the difference maker.
One of the hardest hit home runs we have seen all year. Pretty good rip. Todd 4 for 16 lifetime against Hamels. 4 for 17 after having to play as our guys, nothing, and their guys coming back.
Going to line up his Rangers today. Rougned Odor in the leadoff spot. Then it's Desmond and Mazzara. In the middle, Adrian Beltre, Prince Fielder, Mitch Moreland. And at the bottom third, Andres, Rua, and Bobby Wilson. The defense and how they're going to line up behind Matt Latos. It's going to be Melky, Austin, and Adam in the outfield with Frazier, Saladino, Laurie, and Abreu in the infield. Deanna Navarro, who is the personal catcher for Matt Latos behind the plate, and our Lexus pursuing perfection starting pitcher is Matt Latos. He's 5-0 this year in 6 starts. His ERA a fine 2.62. And he's got to handle a very difficult ball club in normally a tough place to pitch.
So here's Odor, 22-year-old second baseman. Some kind of player. Takes a strike. Rangers come in hitting at .261 as a team with a 4.17 team ERA. Rangers 11-6 at home this season. And here at Globe Life Park, 354 down the left field line. And down the right field line, it's 325. 377 in right center. 380 in left center and 404 dead away center. One out.
Not only good positioning, but a good adjustment, because Frazier was over toward the line and in closer, thinking that being the only man on the left side, Odor might be thinking about a bunt. So when it got to 0-2, he moves to straightaway shortstop, and Odor just bounces one to him. Tough man taken off base.
Here's one of the heroes yesterday, Ian Desmond, hitting a .252 with 4 long ones and 17 knocked in. Ian is 4 for 10 with a homer and 4 RBIs in the series.
He's very aggressive, and he's got a big swing, and it really doesn't matter the count. Desmond, one of those guys that doesn't care much if he strikes out. He's done it 28 times this year. That's 3rd on the ball club. But when he gets a hold of it, he can hit it a long way.
Well, you can't reach your full potential as a major league hitter until you understand taking an 0 for 4 and taking a strikeout or 2 or 3 in a game. There are going to be some days you go to that plate, that guy 60 feet 6 inches away is going to be better than you are.
And I also believe the situation will dictate what you can do as far as your stroke is concerned. There's guys who never adjust. There's other guys who will adjust to the situation.
Well, Steve, we're seeing fewer guys make adjustments today than we've ever seen.
No stigma on the strikeout these days.
No.
But the thing you really hate to see is infield back conceding the run with 1 out and a man at 3rd and a pop-up in the infield.
That's into right field. And that's 2 down. Yeah. And Steve just hit it right on the head on one of the big reasons, if not the biggest reason, because there's no stigma on the strikeout. You know, years past, the one thing a hitter did not want to do, a pretty good hitter, is strike out 100 times. And with certain hitters, you would say, well, if he did strike out 100 times with this season, you would say, well, he came to the plate a lot of times with nobody on base. And that dictated his approach.
How many big home run hitters do you remember that struck out a relatively few amount of times?
Quite a few. Quite a few. Reggie Jackson was the guy who started disdaining.
Yeah, he struck out a lot.
Yeah. And there's a strike. Mazzara, it's just like Pete Rose was the guy who took a singles hitter. Used to say singles hitters drive Chevrolet, home run hitters drive Cadillacs. That was the mantra, so to speak, back in those days. Get foul, get foul. That ball came back. He thought it was going to be foul. So Mazzara, here's a throw, and he got it. Mazzara wants for them to look at it.
It's going to be the 7th outfield assist if it holds up, and Adam Eaton continues a remarkable run defensively, but they're going to take a look. Steve Buechele is there. The ball was off the mark, and we'll see about that tag. That ball was really strange. That ball did not go toward the line. It came out like a knuckleball. Tyler Saladino gets there, and the question will be when he did get there. Now, his left foot comes off the bag. Watch the left foot. That's off the bag, and the question is, did he get the right knee between when the left foot came off the bag? And apparently the answer is yes.
Well, Laz was in perfect position to see it. All right, after 1, no score. For a taping of Beer Money, the trivia show that tests your sports knowledge in exchange for cash. Kelly Kroll hosts tomorrow at 5 at the Ogden in Chicago. Beer Money presented by Coors Light. Melky Cabrera, Brad Laurie, and Avi Garcia. Melky 2 for 7 with a couple of RBIs in the series, and lifetime against Cole Hamels. 6 for 17 with a homer.
Backdoor breaking ball, and he caught a third of the plate. You can see it on Menard's pitch tracks. Hamels a lot like Jose Quintana. Uses a whole lot of up and down.
That is just foul.
Quintana's among the best in baseball at getting guys out via the strikeout or pop-up on high fastballs, high out of the zone when he's ahead. Hamels very similar.
Positioning right there, perfect. And that's out number 1. So here's Brett at 279, 4 homers, 14 knocked in, 3 for 10 in the series, and he's knocked in a pair. Boy, that ball that Mazzaro hit. I'll tell you, these maple bats, you don't know what's going to happen with a spin. He thought it was going foul. He hesitated, and of course that cost him a double.
I don't blame him, because like 99.5% of the time the ball always hooks or slices toward the line. That ball came back toward the field of play, and I think Mazzaro was absolutely shocked that this one actually stayed in play, because he hesitates, and once you do that, you're better off staying at first base, especially against the guy who's been the best in baseball at throwing out runners.
Well, you very seldom ever see as he strikes him out. You very seldom see a hitter where that ball landed that far in fair territory.
He doesn't know it.
Yeah, he didn't know it. So here's Avi. Avi on an 11-game hitting streak. Bases, big base hit last night in the 4th inning with 2 out. Bases loaded, and he cleared them with a double.
Bringing the hands down a bit, perhaps a little more of a crouch, and during that streak, runs batted in, runs scored. Added up to 20 in 11 games. That's just outstanding. Good straight change today for Cole Hamels.
Boy, he's got a good motion with it.
Yeah, he's just a good pitcher.
Well, you got to figure with the numbers he's been putting up that he's got to have a really good straight changeup.
Well, he did it in, if not a miniature ballpark, one of the great parks he hit in all of baseball, and that's that park in Philadelphia. And that's where Hamels spent his entire career until he was moved over to Texas in an 8-player deal. And the Rangers are ecstatic because they control him for another couple of years.
Third strikeout for Hamels, and we're still scoreless. Sox insider Dan Hayes all season long on CSNChicago.com. Presented by The Great Escape. Pools, patio furniture, hot tubs, and more. Escape your everyday shop. Shop The Great Escape.
There's one guy on this Texas Ranger team that doesn't mind getting in another player's face and keeps everything together. But if he doesn't like what's going on, he lets the other guy know it, and you're looking at him. Adrian Beltre is one of the big leaders on this team, a guy who wants to win so badly that he doesn't want anybody taking anything for granted or not playing 100% or not playing heads-up baseball. And Beltre will go right to him.
And one of the best third basemen to ever play the game.
Well, I think when it's all over for him, because there's so few third basemen at Cooperstown, he will find his way there.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about it.
he wants to appeal that after he swung. That's a good play.
I love to watch this man play. I was talking with Adrian after the game last night. And I told him, I said, Adrian, I have really enjoyed watching you play. He just looked at me and started laughing, and he pointed like he went to the umpire.
This is always good. You know the ump behind the plate is going to call a strike, so you want the appeal to first just in case Jeff Nelson has a dissenting view.
Oh, he's something. 418 home runs, 4 Gold Gloves at third. And the Gold Gloves really just don't tell all the story. It's he can take the reason I love watching him play. He can take a routine ground ball and put a little garnish on it to where it really looks good. And it's not being a hot dog. That's just the way he is. High in the right field. One out. He's also talking after the game last night with one of the greatest catchers to ever play the game. Don Rodriguez does some television work for Texas, along with Mark McLemore. Well, what a catcher he was.
Well, he could do everything you needed. He had a very strong bat and was durable. I mean, phenomenally durable. That's all he won was 13 Gold Gloves.
Most ever for catchers.
Pretty amazing.
Well, the only guy I ever saw throw better than him was Johnny Bench. And when I say that, it's only because I think if you take time received to the time the ball got to second base, I think Johnny was just a tick quicker than Yvonne.
Catchers will tell you that arm strength is essential, but footwork is equally as essential, and the best throwers are the guys with the best footwork and the quickest feet, and both of those guys were wonderful at that.
And Johnny could also just throw right from his knees and fire an absolute missile down to second. $13 Gold Gloves. Johnny Bench had 10 and Ron had 13. Prince really been scuffling. Comes in hitting at 188, a couple of homers, but he has knocked in 18 runs, so his production has been decent.
Well, Jeff Bannister moved him down one spot in the batting order, and that's maybe in an effort to take a little pressure off the big man.
Well, if you missed the opening, there's ball 4. We talked about how nobody knows this game. There's just been some people who've been around it longer than others, but nobody is an expert in this game, won this game. In fact, Jeff Bannister and I were talking about that last night, how Texas should have won the first game and we should have won the second game. And that's just the way it is.
You certainly can't predict it, and you never know what's going to happen as far as where luck is going to come in during the course of a game. But it helps if both teams feel they're never out of it. And with the Rangers and the Sox this year, they always feel they're in the ball game regardless of what the score is. We saw that last night with 7 in the 8th for Texas.
And they kept coming back in the first game. Yeah, there are too many momentum changes. And momentum is everything in the game, inside the game. And that's out of play. Moreland hitting at 257, 4 homers, 16 knocked in, but he's dangerous. Last year, Mitch, 23 homers.
And he's played an excellent defensive first base. And he's going to be a free agent. And a lot of people feel that that's going to open the door for Joey Gallo to make the switch from third to first. Shift is on, thinking that Orland's going to pull the ball. If he does, it should be 2.
And of course, Prince is not a threat to runs, and Jose is holding him on. But one of the reasons for that, even with the strong left-handed hitter up, is Austin's got him, and that's out number 2. One of the reasons being is that there are a lot of infielders, corner guys, especially at first base. I know if I were playing first base here, I'd want to take the ball off the grass, not off that hard infield.
Well, this is one of the fastest infields around because of that.
There's none faster.
Hard infield. I mean, it's almost like playing on the schoolyard on the cement, because when it does hit that, it actually picks up speed. And we saw Avi hit one to Odor at second base. He just got completely handcuffed on a ground ball to straightaway second.
Yeah, you're much better off taking it off the grass. Hardest, fastest, natural service. Probably, I don't know about the National League, but certainly in the American. High into left field. Melky's there, and that'll retire the side. After 2, we're still scoreless.
Cold one to look forward to Miller time later in the game, brought to you by Miller Lite.
So here is Navarro, the honor. Hitting at 208, a couple of homers. He's driven in 12.
He's done a great job since 2012 at the opportunity to catch Matt Latos. Going back there, covering very close to 80 innings. ERA under 2 for Latos to Navarro.
The honor chops that one over in and out of our dugout. Sox will conclude this game, this rubber match of the series. Get on up to the Big Apple. Oh, look at this. That's a hang woofing right there. He throws it away. So we catch a break. Look like the Rangers are going to get a break on a rocket. Look like a Roman candle.
Well, Cole Hamels lost track of who was running, because once he knocked down the baseball, he had more than ample time to be able to cut down Navarro. So he hurries his throw, throws it away. Moreland can't corral it.
No, not when you throw it into that runner. He's not going to
No.
corral it.
No, he is not. Single E1.
So Tyler's got a job to do. Corners in close. That ball gets away from Bobby Wilson. So DeHunter in the third. Must have been a little cross up or something.
Wilson's a pretty good defensive catcher, and this one he just flat out missed. That has got to be a pass ball. Now if he's crossed up, well, it's not his fault, but you can't give him anything but a pass ball.
No. No, he went after that like he was definitely crossed up.
Now the defense has to shift a bit.
Talking about it last night, when you get a situation like this and you're just trying to get that man in with less than 2 out, especially right-handed hitter against a left-handed pitcher, you back off the plate a little bit and then don't turn the head of the bat over.
And they're back in the middle infield.
You don't need big swings. This is situational hitting.
Best arms in the outfield. Desmond in center, Mazzara in right.
All your big run producers, they have their own little fingerprint, their own little technique on getting that man from third base in with less than 2 out. Something they always key on. It's almost like a pacifier, so to speak.
This entire at bat, Hamels has tried to throw the ball well in off the plate to Saladino. That'll force him to pull it. If he does pull it to the left side, it's going to be pretty tough to score for Navarro.
One out.
Every pitch in the at bat inside, most of them off the plate. There we see the Menards pitch tracks.
Not a good at bat right there. So here is Adam Eaton, grounded out to Odor at second.
Now they're bringing him in all 4 positions in the infield.
Two out.
Good idea by Bannister. Even early in the ball game, you might as well try to cut down a runner at the plate or stop him from running, and that's what he did.
Especially when you don't have the middle of the order coming up.
Nope. When Hamels throws that fastball inside, he sets up that straight change away. There's right around 8 or 9 miles an hour difference in that straight change in the fastball.
Well, right-handers hitting at 218 against Hamels. Left-handers hitting at 214. So at 218 average will tell you he will pitch you inside if you're a right-handed hitter.
Before the last time out against Detroit, Cole Hamels said in a newspaper article that he was getting ready to start to dominate. 7 innings, 1 hit last time out against Detroit.
Ball hit hard off the glove, and once again a nice base hit by Austin Jackson. Is 1-0 Sox.
Not much is going to pick up a ball club like having a man at third, nobody out, only to see 2 outs go by without him scoring. And Austin Jackson driving in his 12th of the year. A big hit. You don't come up empty in this inning. And taking the 1-run lead. Andrus thought he had it, but we talked about the acceleration off the dirt. And that one just scooted by him.
So here's Abreu, had an infield single. Give me one of the reasons, in your opinion, that he is bold enough to tell a publication that he's getting to the point he feels like he's going to dominate.
He was coming back from a groin injury. He was entirely healthy for the first time this year, and he felt when he's healthy, he's better than everybody he's facing.
Beltre almost threw it away. Good play by Odor right there, but a big base hit by Austin Jackson, and it's 1-0 good guys. Ball's unluckiest pitchers due to his previous lack of run support. Jose Quintana is turning his luck around this season thanks to the help of his teammates. So don't miss the story Saturday on White Sox pregame live, presented by the Koalas family of dealerships at 11:30 right here on CSN. All right, so you think it was just because of health?
I do believe that what he did, he felt that the groin was becoming a problem. He went to Jeff Bannister and he said, look, I can feel this. I've had it before. I think I need a couple of days. And Jeff told me that, look, he knows himself better than I know him, so we put him on the shelf a couple days. He came back and he felt 100%, and that's when he said, now it's going to come together. Now I am going to dominate. We'll see what happens.
Ryan Rua getting a 286, couple of homers, 6 knocked in. And last night, talking about putting a charge into a baseball. I'm telling you, if you missed it, here it is. That wind's been howling in from center field.
And Austin Jackson took a couple of steps back and then realized he just wanted to see how far up the grass this one got.
Yeah, that's where the pitcher turns around to see how far it's going to go. And he starts it off with a base hit.
Last year he was a starting left fielder, and unfortunately after a decent start he fouled the ball off his foot and broke it. And I think that you can attest, Hawk, if you have a bad foundation for the broken foot, it's going to be a little difficult for you to hit.
Well, getting back to Cole Hamels, I'm going to put more stock in what you said and what my opinion is, because this is the first time I've seen Cole Hamels in person. I'll tell you why I think he made that statement that he thinks he's going to dominate. Just watching him pitch for. But 3 innings. How he dominates the inside part of the plate. You show me a pitcher that loves to come inside, left-handed to those right-handed hitters like he does, I'll show you guys absolute supreme confidence.
He had to do that because of where he was raised, and that was in Philadelphia in that ballpark. It's pretty much left-handers at Fenway Park. If they don't throw inside to the right-handers, they might as well go home. They're going to get killed.
You know, the only guys that really stuck the bats up, you know, where they shouldn't have been in Fenway were the guys who pitched inside.
Yeah.
Guys who stayed away got killed.
Yeah.
We killed them. All the guys who stayed away.
I think Hamels feels the same way. That's how he learned how to pitch, and so you got to find a way to try to keep him out of there.
There's a shot, base hit. So back-to-back singles leading off here in the bottom of the 3rd. Somebody's going to have that sense of control. It's either going to be the hitter or the pitcher, but one or the other is going to have it. And when you get a guy out there with that kind of presence, that he's just going to pound you inside, and you know it, he's probably got that sense of control. So here is Odor. He grounded out with a shift on. Todd Frazier was playing it short.
Because Adrian Beltre believes that the sky is the limit for Odor, he's the one he stays on the most. He's the one he realizes is going to be a future star of this team, and he wants him to learn baseball fundamentals as well as he possibly can. So game after game, if he does something that maybe an older player wouldn't do, Beltre will go right to him and tell him about it.
Well, it's much better. It's much better coming from a fellow Latin, because they have a little different perception of the game, so to speak. And I say that very, very complimentary. As you know, I'm very partial to Latins. Want to know the count. That's why I'm still shocked to a degree that Ozzie Guillen is not managing.
Ozzie will manage. There's no doubt in my mind.
He's going to manage again, but I mean, I'm shocked with the influx of Latin players and the percentage going up and up and up. That's foul back. Come back. It won't. Toros over the screen.
We have a coach on our team that I would certainly hate to lose. I think he's been a huge benefit. But Rick Renteria will be a major league manager in the not too distant future, because he is an outstanding baseball man. We all know the situation of what happened with the Cubs. They had a chance to get what they felt was one of the best managers in baseball, a perfect fit for their club at the time, and so Rick was let go. But it wasn't because of the lack of understanding of this game. He is really strong in that aspect.
Goes to second. One out. Runners at the corners.
Odor well out in front of that, hit it off the end of the bat. With the speed of Odor, it's doubtful you're going to turn 2 here, but he wanted to keep the double play in order.
I like it because he took his time to make sure he made a good throw.
Get 1 before you get 2, and normally you're not going to be in any trouble.
So Odor's probably going to be off somewhere in this sequence. He's 4 for 5 in stolen bases. 17 for 25 Rangers are as a team. Here's Desmond. He went out to right field. We'll go with a good lead. There he goes.
He actually took off before Latos threw the ball, and he pretty much noticed that Matt wasn't looking at him. Had he stepped off, then they'd have had him dead to rights. So he steals number 5. See it right here. He gets a great jump. Last couple of years, he was thrown out more than he stole. And that's a guy with speed, but not any technique.
Watch out. Watch out. Bad throw. So Desmond moves into second, and the game is tied at 1. That's one of the, might be the only, no, second bad throw that Adam has made this year.
Bad thought process. 2 runners are not going to score. Odor just loping into third base, and if Adam throws this one right at Abreu, nobody's going anywhere. By airmailing the cutoff man, you take the double play out of the equation.
So here's Mazzara. Just got underneath the tag. I love what the Sox are doing this year. We haven't seen this in, I mean, since I've been here.
No,
over 30 years.
Both Avila and Navarro very quick and accurate, and they came close at third base.
And here's the throw into third as Odor scores, and it's 2-1 Texas.
12th driven in by Mazzara, and Desmond heads to third base. So they take the lead on the sacrifice fly.
There's Beltre. He went out to Adam. How much did that, you being a pitcher, did that change your thinking when you had a man at first and third, or a man at second and third, as far as your approach to the say a good hitter at the plate?
Well, if you're going to talk about 1 out, then I wanted to make sure that I tried to keep everything as down in the zone as I could, because I was a high fastball pitcher, so I was going away from my strength to what I felt would be the hitter's weakness.
Palladino. All right, so the throw did not cost us anything right there, but they score a pair and they lead it by 1.
Take a look at our Travel Wisconsin upcoming schedule. That's brought to you by, amazingly enough, Travel Wisconsin. Plan your fun today at travelwisconsin.com. And as you can see, day off tomorrow. 3-game series against New York, in New York, and then it's home. We kick it off with the Astros. And that is the upcoming schedule.
Todd Frazier. See, the reason I ask you that about how you would think, I know when I was playing first base that in that same situation when one of our outfielders overthrew it, that ball hit deep, way back. He looks up, and this game is tied at 2. Yes.
What a series for Todd Frazier. That's his 11th. He's now driven in 31. And that was a no-doubter. Ford home run replay. And this ball is right down the middle. So a mistake by Hamels cost him the lead.
And here is Cabrera. And he smokes that one into left field. So Melky he's now 7 for 19 off Hamels. But the reason I ask you is when that happened when I was playing first base, one out, outfielder was through the cutoff man trying to get somebody that he wasn't going to get. All of a sudden the guy goes into second base. Now you got second, third, one out. You always go to the pitcher and say, don't let this bother you. Don't change your game plan.
Well, what usually happens is you realize, especially early in the game, that the infield's going to be back. They're going to concede the run to stay out of the big inning. With first and third, you're telling yourself definitively throw a ground ball, get yourself out of the inning. With runners at second and third, especially when they're going to concede the run, you're telling yourself don't let him hit a fly ball. So it's a positive thought, throw a ground ball, get out of the inning, as opposed to don't let him hit a fly ball.
Big difference.
And it's a huge difference.
Yes, big difference. Well framed. There's a strike to Laurie. Brett struck out his first trip. And of course, with that home run by Frazier, Alex Snellius with another generous donation to White Sox charities in loving memory of Ursula. That ball hit hard. Stay in the air. Stay in the air. It will. You can. Put it on the board. Yes. Sox lead it 4-2.
Pretty good catch by Adam Ricks. And he's going to take a curtain call for catching the 2-run homer. A Ford home run replay, the 5th of the year for Laurie. He's now driven in 16. And just like that, Texas answers the 1 with 2. Sox answer the 2 with 3.
Three Rockets. As he gets inside on Ivy, 1 out.
White Sox fans, you can vote now for your favorite moment and milestones from the first 25 years of U.S. Cellular Field. Head-to-head matchups run through May 19th, and the defining moment will be revealed during homecoming weekend presented by the Village of Bedford Park. That's May 20th through the 22nd. Visit whitesox.com/USCF25 to vote today.
You know, I was just thinking as you were reading that promo. For the first time, actually since 2005. Then he got it. He got hit. But for the first time since 2005, we got a club with some charisma.
Well, there's no doubt that there's distinct and very unique personalities almost across the board. The additions were wonderful this year, and it doesn't hurt that they're actually all contributing. So Robin comes out. He wants to have a talk with Ben May, and he feels strongly enough about this to want a review.
Well, he's going on the honor. There's some players that, you know, like Alexei. You couldn't go by Alexei Ramirez because every time, I mean, he was always right, you know.
Yeah.
But some of the players, like Robin, when they didn't have review when Robin was playing, but when Robin got upset, you know the umpire had probably blown something.
Gunnar is saying it got him off the foot. And he was hopping around a bit trying to sell it, so it's early for a challenge, but Robin feels it's important enough. From that angle, it looks like it did get him off the foot.
You know, that club in 2006 started off with the same kind of charisma that we had in 2005, but that petered out about halfway through the season.
Did you feel going into spring training that 06 team was as good as the 05 team in the spring training?
Yes. One of the unique things about Kenny Williams was, with the exception of one year, every year was here, I always thought that when the season ended, going into spring training, we had a better club than we had when the season ended.
Do you remember the additions to that team post World Series win?
The additions?
Yeah.
No. The only thing I remember about World Series was that pitching staff.
It's pretty good. And John Walgren, our producer, tells us they added the big man Jim Thome. That's a nice addition.
No,
and so,
that 2005 club was something special. Well, when you go 11-1 in postseason play, you know you got something special.
well, if he indeed did get hit and there wasn't definitive proof, that one hit him too, only he fouled it off. And Adrian he's applauding him.
There's a shot. So the honor, the throw off the mark. Picks up his 5th two-back.
He just takes this one over the head of Beltre, and knowing that Rua doesn't have a particularly strong arm, he beats the play easily to second.
That 2005 team did something we will never see again.
I don't think so. 4 straight complete games.
4 consecutive complete.
In the playoffs? No, I don't think you're going to see that anytime soon, even with some great staffs.
And I don't know if you'll ever see a World Series champion team with 3 closers in the same year. Shingo Takatsu, Dustin Hermanson, and then Bobby Jenks.
Especially with a rookie doing the honors at the end.
It takes a GM and a manager with a lot of stones to do that. Tyler struck out his first trip.
Hamels has now given up 6 home runs this year in 40 in the 3rd innings of work. With this park as your home park, you're going to give up a few.
Two down. So here's Adam, grounded to second. And grounded to short. 4-7-0 for our guys, 2-4-1 for their guys.
I don't care how many you have. That's always a big run out at second base.
We saw that last night.
Yeah, we did, unfortunately.
If you missed that game and you're just tuning in last night, 8th inning, we had a 5-run lead. We had a 5-run lead. All they did was score 7 times in the 8th inning.
And Doug Bocale now comes out to talk with Hamels. A pretty good first and second. Some difficulties in the third. And a whole lot of problems here in the fourth. If the Rangers are going to win this year, and that's not a foregone conclusion, they're going to have Cole Hamels at his best and Hugh Darvish when he comes back at his best.
Two and one to count. Odor. But some damage is done. A crooked number goes up on that board. A solo shot by Frazier. 2-run home by Brett Laurie. And we lead it 4-2. Our viewers watching on Kelowna Cooperative Telephone in Kelowna, Iowa.
There's a young Rangers fan. I think she's got big enough sunglasses.
Good fans here in Texas.
You've been talking about what they've been averaging, and been pretty good crowds.
I don't believe it. Averaged almost 32,000. So here's Prince. He walked back in the second inning. That's the only walk issued. Latos.
Shift is on in the infield.
Jammed him, ate him up. Tied. Long way to go. Watch out, he goes in.
I think he made the catch.
Made the catch. Did he hang on?
But he's hurt.
Yeah, he's hurt.
was a spectacular effort, and this is a real bad sight. The wind is taking this one away from him. He knows exactly where he is. Wow, it looked like he hit his mouth right on the seat. Ball was in the glove.
Oh boy.
But wow.
Carlos Sanchez and
when we find out,
I'm going downstairs. You take over, okay?
So Carlos takes over at third base. The at-bat stays alive. And a 1-1 count on Prince Fielder. They put the shift back on, and Fielder, who drew a walk in the second, for his second at bat. Line drive base hit, that's in the gap. Fielder on his way to second base as this one rolls to the wall. And it's a double. Double number 6 for Prince Fielder. As he reaches out, catches it off the end of the bat, but strong enough to roll it all the way to the wall. That'll bring up Mitch Moreland. Hit a fly ball to Austin Jackson in the second inning. He normally is a pull hitter, and this is what the situation calls for. So he looks at one up out of the zone. Five hits given up by Matt Latos. He holds a 2-run lead. And he misses upstairs. Count 2-0. Moreland has gotten much better defensively. He could always swing the bat. Attended Mississippi State University, drafted by the Rangers in the 17th round in 2007. So they've gotten a whole lot of mileage out of a guy they drafted down. He actually pitched at Mississippi State, as well as hitting more than his share of home runs. So the walk. Sox fans, join us on Saturday, May 21st at 1:10 as the Sox take on the Royals. All fans 21 and over will receive a 25th ballpark anniversary canvas presented by Miller Lite, the official light Pilsner and official beer of the Chicago White Sox. Purchase your ticket today at whitesox.com or call 866-SOX-GAME. So now meeting at the mound, and Carlos comes over. He wants to tell him just exactly what the defense is going to be. What happens is Sanchez looks in the dugout, gets the signs, then gives the signs to the rest of the infield, but verbally tells the pitcher if he wants him to charge straight in or over toward the line. No sign of bunt there for Andrews, who hit a fly ball softly to left field, ending the second inning. And now Robin is going to come out and talk with Matt Latos. Now, managers go out in that situation not necessarily to settle down Latos or anything else. He's telling the infielders exactly what he wants them to do, so there's no miscommunication. And there's a few ways you can defend first and second, nobody out. It's called the wheel play. You can use a pickoff at second base with the shortstop or second baseman. You can charge with the third baseman with the shortstop coming to third. The pitcher can go to the third base line with the third baseman staying back. There's a number of variations. Popped up. Sanchez over toward the seats, and the wind takes it out of play. We are waiting on a report on Todd Frazier, who went head first into the seats, put his glove over his mouth, sprinted toward the dugout, and was taken into the locker room. Over to second for one, back to first, off the mark, and he can't get it. Unfortunately, a tailor-made two, and the Sox don't turn two. Throw is good to second. And Brett is not interfered with. Moreland had no chance to get a piece of him. And now we'll have to see what Jeff Bannister wants, because Steve Buechele was reviewing it. Ryan Rua singled and scored a run last inning. And last night, 3 hits, including a 3-run bomb in the 8th inning that was the difference maker. Runners at the corners. Only 1 out, and that fastball on the outside corner. So says our Honda pitch tracks. Maybe a break on the call. Outfield straight away. Infield halfway, looking for 2. And Andrus back to the bag. Timeout was called. Andrus has got speed, but he's not a particularly great base stealer. He's stolen 2, been caught 3 times. And you don't have a whole lot of speed at third base and Prince Fielder. So good lead at first by Andrus. And a little looper. Abreu's going to catch it. That ball well inside. The bat breaks. And the runners will stay right there. So 1 out away from getting out of what potentially could be a big inning. And Bobby Wilson steps up, hitting a robust .438. Hit a grand slam in Detroit to cap off a sweep by these Rangers.
All right. I just saw him.
And
I didn't see him for maybe 15-20 seconds. Hermie got him in there going. It appears his teeth went through his lip. But I was worried about a broken jaw or something like that. And it appears, knock on wood, I'm not a doctor, it appears he's going to be okay. He just said he was more scared than anything.
I can't blame him.
No. But Knock on wood. That's all there is. Oh, man.
That was a concession speech to second base, which is somewhat unusual because that's the tying run. Now you don't have a force out. One and two count. Now Andrus even up at 3 out of 6 in the stolen base department. The chopper to shortstop. Saladino has it, and Matt Latos out of the inning. So after 4 full, it's a 4-2 ball game. Was scored in the 3rd inning. Austin Jackson taking the ball into left field, and it was 1-0. And with that first White Sox run, eClick Lending will donate $100 to the Pat Tillman Foundation, supporting military veterans and their families.
And that coming with 2 out. A big base hit by Austin as he takes first pitch, curveball strike.
A runner at 3rd and nobody out. Find yourself with a runner at 3rd and 2 outs. That was a big one.
Yeah, it was. That's when more. That's probably just about as much heat as a hitter can put on himself right there. Trying to pick some guys up. And that pitch, 90 miles an hour upstairs. Out and around that one. 90 to 77.
I don't ever think I've seen a guy get downstairs faster than you did.
Well, we're almost 75. I still move it pretty good.
Yeah, I was going to say that was pretty quick.
Probably have to have both hamstrings iced after the game. I was just going down there. I was just scared to death that he had broken his jaw or something.
Well, for his contribution to this ball club, not only the runs driven in and the home runs, but every aspect of his game. He'd be the last guy that we could afford to lose for any length of time.
Every aspect of his personality and his being, so to speak. One out.
Well, you and the Padres, Andrew Kashner, are probably going to suffer the same thing. He had cramps in both hamstrings. Probably going to miss his next start. I assume tonight you'll probably have a cramp or two in those hamstrings.
Who's he pitching against, the Cubs?
No, well, no. He was supposed to go against Milwaukee.
A lot of guys. They're going to come up with some bad hamstrings or something pitching against the Cubs.
Well, that Cub lineup, he is really strong. Offensively, that team can really get it done. When you consider that Schwarber lost for the year, Montero's been out, Hayward's got a bad wrist, and they're still scoring a lot of runs.
I know when we had all that thunder with the Red Sox, we'd have pitchers coming there a lot of times. First they were scheduled to pitch, and the next thing you know, they got scratched, sore back, got coming down with a cold, flu-like symptoms. Something.
I was with the ball club, and we were losing 22-0, and they had just called up a guy from the minor leagues. They told him to get up in the pen, and he told the bullpen coach his shoulder was stiff. He did not come into the game. 22-0. It was to the Pittsburgh Pirates. It was 22 runs on 25 hits without hitting a home run at Wrigley Field. It was an amazing. It was at the time the largest shutout ever against the Cubs.
That is amazing.
Yeah, but I remember the call went down and the call came back. He said, "Geez, his shoulder's a little stiff. we can't use it."
Abreu's 1 for 2 at an infield single. Two down. Seven strikeouts now for Hamels.
Hamels came in averaging a strikeout an inning. And for a guy that's not overpowering with his fastball, don't get me wrong, he's got a good fastball, but it's a lot of times anywhere from 91 to 93. But that straight change, you got to guard against that.
He's got probably as many strikeouts, if not more, on right-handers than he does on left-handers because of the fact the way he pitches inside. It's that old saying, you know, worst 5 words you can tell a hitter. You can tell me he's got a great fastball. That doesn't bother me. Tell me he's got a great curveball. That doesn't bother me because he gets it over. I can't do anything anyway. Tell me he's got a great slider. That's no problem because if he gets it over, I can be done anyway. Tell me he's got a great changeup. Now my wheels start turning. Sanchez grounds out, so a very quick. We're halfway home, and we lead at 4-2. Thank you very much, buddy. As we're in the home half of the fifth inning, top of the order, Odor, Desmond, and Mazzaro. First pitch strike. Odor's 0 for 2 with a stolen base and a run scored.
The shift has been on all series, and he has hit the ball to the left side quite a bit. Now, the reason why Sanchez is in on the grass, trying to take away a thought of a bunt. But as we've seen, when you get a little bit different count with 2 strikes, now he'll move back, pretty much play a straightaway shortstop. Great job by Matt Latos getting out of that 4th inning. Fielder led off with a double, then the walk to Moreland. First and second, nobody out. Sox had an opportunity, a double play, didn't turn it, but Latos pitched his way out.
High in the right field. Can of corn for Adam.
Sox fans, build a career in the sports industry. Don't miss the White Sox Sports and Marketing Career Fair on Friday, May 20th. Be there for 2 hours of networking with representatives from top sports organizations and stay to watch the game. Admission includes a fare and a game ticket. To purchase, visit whitesox.com/job.
Ian Desmond 1 for 2 with an RBI. Picked up his 18th back in the 3rd inning. Just tuning in, we scored 1 in the 3rd. They scored 2 in the 3rd, and we scored 3 in the 4th. Solo homer by Todd Frazier, then a single by Cabrera, and then a 2-run homer by Brett Laurie.
Latos has stopped Desmond from hitting the first pitch. Pitch number 69 on the way, and he wanted to stop to clear his head for a moment before getting back to action. Desmond was a free agent, was not signed till the end of February. There were a lot of teams did not want to pay the price of a lost draft pick. And I think Texas is very happy they got him. They got him as a shortstop in spring training because of Elvis Andrus. They converted him to a left fielder. And when Shin-Soo Choo comes back, Desmond is going to be an everyday center fielder.
Good pitch right there, and did not get it. So now the count instead of 2-2 is 3-1. Outfield slightly to the right, big gap left center. There's ball 4.
Got to keep a close eye on Desmond. He will try to steal. And he has been pretty good at it. 5 out of 6.
3rd walk issued by Latos. Here's Mazzaro. A single and a sacrifice fly. There he goes.
Saladino kept the tag on him, hoping that although he knew he was going to beat the throw, he might pop off the bag. So that's stolen base number 6. Navarro did all he could do. Desmond got a very good jump against Matt Latos, who is not all that quick to the plate.
Latos giving him 5 hits, 3 walks, no strikeouts yet. Tyler better make a couple of dekes, even with a left-handed hitter. And just 1 out. Well, that's back-to-back walks.
And Don Cooper's going to come out. Find out how Latos is feeling and probably go over however they want to pitch Beltre.
And while he goes out there, let's take another look if you're just tuning in at Todd Frazier on this attempted. There he goes into the seats. Smashes into that seat.
And that is one very tough guy running off immediately, and it was right after this that Hermie takes him into the locker room.
So here's Beltre. Going out to right, and he is grounded to short.
That time Latos looked back twice at second base as Desmond was measuring him. Trying to see if he'd only look back once if he could time him, because he's getting a good lead at second.
Count evens at 1.
Four double plays grounded into by Beltre.
Center field. Austin hits the cutoff man. As Desmond had looked at Mazzaro as soon as the ball was hit and said, go back and tag.
You got to hit the cutoff man. You're not going to get Desmond at third, but you certainly want to make sure that the tying run is not at second base, and also that you keep the force out in order.
That's why, as you mentioned, fundamental 101.
Fundamental. Part of good outfielding is making sure you hit that cutoff man consistently.
Here's Prince. He has walked and he has doubled. Takes first pitch strike.
Sox have had success when they've stayed in under the hands of fielder, and not much success when they've tried to stay away from him.
That's trouble. And this game is tied at 4. Kansas City special off the batter. Prince Field.
LeBron wanted that one in, and Latos got it up but not in. It was up and out over the plate. Fielder now is driven in 20.
Well, when you walk two guys in an inning back to back, chances are one of them's going to score. In this case, both of them score. There's Moreland. Tacks it up and takes ball one. In fact, if you missed that game of ours last night, in the fourth inning, Renato walked 5 guys. We scored 5 runs on 1 hit. Four 7-0 for us, 4-6-1 for them.
In the opener, 6 relievers used by Robin. Last night, 4 relievers.
They're going to put him on. So 3 walks in the inning.
On Friday, June 10th, come and see the White Sox take on the Royals at 7:10. All fans invited to stay for a spectacular post-game fireworks show presented by Magellan Corporation. Purchase tickets today at whitesox.com or call 866-SOX-GAM.
Elvis, big hack. He's gone out to left and hit into a 5-4 fielder's choice.
Outfield is playing him a shade toward right center. So far is struggling. Matt Lato struggling with his control.
All right. Carlos grabs it, steps on the bag. But the walks do some damage. 2 of them score, and we're tied at 4. He has 6 NBA titles to his name, and his contributions to basketball led to his recent election into the Hall of Fame. So get to know Bulls and White Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf on a new inside look presented by Cadillac. Premieres tomorrow at 7 on CSN. 4-4 tie. Here in the top of the 6th inning, it'll be Cabrera, Laurie, and Avi.
.90 pitches for Hamels. And the bullpen for the Rangers up and going.
Three and 1.
Barnett with the interesting spelling. Loosening up in the pen. It's Tony Barnett. E-T-T-E.
So Melky now 2 for 3. More importantly, the leadoff man aboard.
He continues his dominance over one of the league's best in Cole Hamels.
Here's Brad, a strikeout, and then a 2-run homer. Line shot into our bullpen. And if you missed it, poof.
His 5th. He's driven in 16. And a great catch by Adam Riggs.
All right, 1 out.
Good hard breaking balls low and in, both out of the zone, and he got him. So that's strikeout number 8 for Hamels. He has yet to walk anybody.
All right, Todd Frazier required 5 stitches in his lower lip, and they have him listed day to day.
That's probably with as violently as he went into the stands and as quickly as he came out. It's probably the best outcome you could have.
Take it at a heartbeat.
Indeed.
I got my jaw fractured. Boy, you talking about hurting? Whew. And when he was covering his face like that, that's the first thing that popped in my mind. Broken jaw. One and 2 the count, Avi.
Hamels might be grinding down because he's made some mistakes in this inning. He's gotten away with a couple of them.
Avi on this 11-game hitting streak.
There you look at no walks, the 8 strikeouts. A lot of hits.
Beltre goes off the mark, so it'll be an error. It's only the second error made by Beltre.
He comes on, catches it on the short hop, and then the flip from the side pulls Moreland off the bag.
So here is DeHonor. Infield single and then a double. make that his first error of the season as they took the error away from him earlier. So 1 error.
It was a scoring change in the last series, I believe.
Well, they can do that. They can do it in New York.
Big inning for the Sox, trying to get to Hamels as he's become a little vulnerable.
You know, our Sox fans are beginning to see in Navarro the same thing that you and I have seen when he played against us, that you don't mind seeing him come to the plate in big situations.
No, he's been very good, and the places he's played, they've just loved having him.
Good rip.
Talked to John Gibbons when we played that Toronto series, and he said that he hated to see him go, but when they got R.A. Dickey, signed that big contract, Josh Thole came over because he catches a knuckleball. As long as they have Dickey, they'll keep Thole. They signed Russell Martin to a huge contract, and Deanna was odd man out. John Gibbons told me that he went to the front office and said, if you ever get a shot at getting him back, get him back. He meant that much to their ball club.
He always killed us. Two down.
Strikeout number 9, and this one is off the plate. Backdoor breaking ball and no contact.
So here's Tyler. He's had 2 tough at bats, 2 strikeouts.
And that 1 hitter through 7. He struck out 9, so 2 starts in a row with 9 Ks. Well, the last time out against Detroit, he gave up 1 hit in 7 innings.
Well, when you're left-handed, you can throw strikes. You get yourself a little over a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, just a decent curveball, and a good changeup. You're going to get some strikeouts.
Tyler lays off the pitches inside, which is exactly how he was worked last time and the time before. He's probably going to get something out over the plate to hit, and now he's ahead in the count, 2-0.
Tyler guessing a strike right there. And the count 3-1 goes back to the catbird seat. Taking a long time to hook up.
Well, by now in this ballpark this time of year, Barnett is loosened up and ready to go in the pen. But with the lefty coming up next, I don't think they want to see the right-handed Barnett facing Adam Eaton.
Right here, Tyler. Lined in the center field, and it's going to fall for a base hit, and it bounces away. So Tyler plates Melky Cabrera, and our Sox lead at 5-4.
Twice this inning. Hamels has fallen behind. And this time he had to go after him with a fastball away. Tyler drives in his 6th run. And that is going to be it for Cole Hamels, who is clearly running out of gas this inning. And he'll leave down in the score. So as he walks out, we'll step out and be back after these messages. The pen, and it is Tony Barnett. On for the 16th time, 1-2, but a pretty good ERA of just under 3.10. 20 hits, however, and 14 2/3. That's not a particularly good number, with left and right-handers both hitting him to a tune of 345 and 323, respectively. Adam Eaton is very happy to see Cole Hamels out of the ball game. He did not hit the ball out of the infield.
I'm with you. I thought that he would leave him in 4. Adams grounded out 3 times. Twice to second, once to short. So runners at the corners, 2 down with a run in. Tyler Saladino's clutch, 2 out, single. Tyler, J.J. Shearer, and all the great folks that did good pick to click. Watch out. So that will load him up.
Adam is hit. The ball hits off Wilson.
And here's Austin. He had a big 2-out RBI single in the 3rd inning.
That is, by the way, the 5th time that Adam Eaton's been hit.
He has a pretty good way of getting out of the way of pitches. Especially, he's almost got hit right in the grill a couple times this year.
Bases full of Sox with very good speed all the way around.
Close. There it goes Barnett's way.
Wilson did a pretty nice job of catching that and easing it back into the zone to make it look higher than it was. Tried to bring that one down, but it was up and out of the zone. He wanted a high fastball.
Ben Mays had a good day behind the plate.
Yeah. Tony Barnett, a product of Arizona State.
Full count. Sox pack. 2 down.
Good stop by Wilson. Now the advantage of everybody running.
And the payoff. That's into center field. Right at the edge of the track, hauls it in, but the big 2-out RBI single by Tyler Saladino. We take a 5-4 lead.
Arms. And we'll take a look at Chris Sale, leading the major leagues with 7 wins, 4th in the AL in ERA. Jose Quintana, 3rd in the American League with 5 wins, 2nd in the AL with a 138. And David Robertson, 3rd in the AL with 10 saves, 1 behind all of the other leaders.
It's the Ranger half of the 6th inning. It'll be Rua, Wilson, then back to the top of the order with Runed, Odor.
Matt Latos has got to find the magic once again. Last 2 innings have been tough.
Three walks last inning, 2 of them scored.
Don Cooper and Robin Ventura keeping a close eye on Latos this inning because the bullpen is up and going. It's number 92 on the way. And 3 innings in a row, there have been some problems. 2, he gave up runs. Play ball in MLB's initiative to inspire all forms of baseball and softball participation, making play opportunities available for fun and for everyone. To learn more, go to playball.org.
So Ryan Rua, now 2 for 3 with that single up the middle, starting off here in the bottom of the 6th. And here is Bobby Wilson. He's 1 for 2. Checks it up, fouls it off.
Hitters don't like that a whole lot. When they know a pitch is out of the zone and they leave the bat close enough to foul one off and it's a strike, as opposed to being ahead 1-0, which is a completely different at bat.
Well, what really upsets you is when you have that check swing and you little tapper back to the mound. There he goes. So now the tying run, nobody out at second base.
It'll be really tough going forward if Matt Latos continues a long, slow delivery, because that was a situation with no play at all. First stolen base of the year. His last stolen base was back in 2014.
So that gets that stolen base over to third. One out. And here comes Robin.
Looks like it's going to be a Jennings-Odor matchup.
That's what's going to happen. That is what is going to happen. All right. Matt Latos will depart, and we'll be back.
And we saw him in the opener, and he was brilliant. He pitched the 10th and 11th inning, giving up no runs. On for the 10th time. He's 1-0, ERA .213. And in that opener, with no margin for error at all, he was able to get out of a first and third, 1-out jam, and then a runner on in the 11th, and nothing scored.
Well, he was pitching against an amped up Texas offense because they had been coming back. So here, infield, they're in. And a tough little customer at the plate in Odor. He's 0 for 3 today.
We got a speed burner at third base and Drew Stubbs. That's what he's brought over for, late inning defense and pinch running.
Going to the count. Same pitch, just a couple of miles an hour slower.
And a very anxious young hitter, and he will swing at something out of the zone.
That's about a 54-footer.
It was a terrific stop by Yanner Navarro. That ball bounded well in front of home plate, and those are the hardest to corral.
He's good.
Yeah, he is good.
He's good.
Also, both Alex Avila and Yanner Navarro, very cerebral catchers.
And the 1-2. Pops him up. Laurie. And a good pitch. 2 down.
Well, he had Odor probably thinking about a slider away, and he threw a fastball up inner portion and just overmatched him. Pinpoint location for Dan Jennings. Nice call by Yanner Navarro.
And here's another tough out right here. Ian Desmond, who's 1 for 2. RBI single, a walk. Stolen base, and he also has scored.
Got a left-hander on deck, and you got to be careful with Desmond. '18 driven in.
A young left-hander. Grabs the strike, and that evens the count at 1. And the count 1-2.
2 perfect pitches. One Desmond gave up on was a backdoor breaking ball, and that was a fastball in essentially the same spot. So Tom Wilhelmsen loosening in the pen. Nettled off that slider that was out of the strike zone. Desmond is going to strike out a lot, but he is constantly dangerous.
Two and two. Did you ever go through a stage where you didn't find it extremely hard to get ahead of the hitter, but then all of a sudden you get him 1-2 or 0-2 and you go, what do I do now?
That's not a good stage.
No, it's not.
Ooh.
Some guys go through that. Oh no. Another Kansas City special. And the game is tied at 5.
Nineteen runs batted in, 2 today, and although it's inside off the plate, Desmond has been hot against us. And now the lefty-lefty matchup will be with Desmond at first base and a tie game. So Cole Hamels off the hook.
Here's Mazzara. And there is a bullet.
First ball fastball out over the plate. And the 21-year-old. With his second hit. You can tell why they paid Nomar Mazara close to $5 million as a youngster out of their Dominican Republic Academy.
One of the biggest baseball factories in the world, Dominican Republic.
For the size of that country and the amount of players they've sent to the major leagues, it's astonishing.
Beltre. He's going out to right, grounded to short, and going out to center. Now 4 for 12 in the series. Takes a strike, but in these situations, he is very, very dangerous. Especially when he's 0 for 3. Turns it loose, then the count 0-2. Six-5. Texas. He is dangerous.
RBI number 25. A team leading 25 for Adrian Beltre, who doesn't seem to age one iota. After picking up his first error of the year, he comes through with a base hit.
Well, when he's a terrific clutch hitter. And when you get him late in the ball game, he's 0 for 3, and you got ducks in the pond, scoring position, you better think twice. You better think twice. So here's Prince. He is 2 for 2, 2 doubles. The last one a 2-run double. That was just a little flare. Kansas City special in the left field. Meanwhile, they come up with a pair. So we'll go to the 7th. It is 6-5 bad guy.
Field at U.S. Cellular Field is accessible from the 100, 300, and 500 levels. You can learn baseball from White Sox Training Academy coaches in batting and pitching cages, along with base running areas. So check out the latest Xfinity technology, including the X1 platform. X1 by Xfinity. It'll change the way you experience TV. Tom Wilhelmsen comes in with a 1-run lead. You might remember him as a closer for the Seattle Mariners. Always had a very big curveball, on for the 15th time. 2-2 record, but a very high earned run average. Drew Stubbs, who came on a pinch run, stays in the game in center. And Ian Desmond shifts over to left field.
So here's Abreu, takes first pitch strike. There's the shot, base hit. Purdue had no chance. That ball was absolutely scorched.
Just like we promised you earlier in the game, it's Miller time, brought to you by Miller Lite, and here's our Miller moments. Todd Frazier leading off the 4th inning. Takes it deep. His 11th home run, 31st driven in. And then a head-first dive into the seats. Took 5 stitches to close that cut on his lip. And he is listed as day to day. Our Miller moments.
That hole in his lip where the teeth went through it. First and 30, Carlos. Makes the strike. And the count evens at 1. Whoops.
He's not looking fastball away there, because that one was in Wilson's glove when he swung.
Good take. 2-2. Six, 10, and 2 for their guys. 5, 10, and 0 for our guys. Watch out. Watch out, Melky.
Wilhelmsen, a big man at 6'6", 220 pounds.
There for a couple of years, he has some outstanding stuff.
He only managed 29 saves in 2012 with Seattle and an ERA at 2.50. Followed it up with 24 saves, but the ERA went up.
Full count. Don't help him out. There he goes. There's a chopper, first base. So 1 out.
Good call by Robin, putting Abreu into motion. Normally you would think that on that same play without any movement, that'd have been a force out at second.
Here's Melky. Couple of hits. Breaking pitch high. Melky 2 for 3 with those 2 solid singles and 2 runs scored. Yeah, that would have been no question about it. Force at second. The left-handed throwing first baseman.
Now Scott Carroll loosening in the pen.
Up the middle. Andrus. 2 down. So it's up to Brett. Laurie. It's 1 for 3, a 2-run homer back in the 4th inning. Same inning that Todd Frazier hit his 11th. One and one to count. Off day tomorrow. And you're going to miss those 3 in New York.
I am, and Dan Plesac will be your partner. Dan, a good man, good broadcaster.
He's a terrific guy. And happens to be one of the all-time great left-handed relievers in history.
Yeah, he pitched a long time and was a closer for a great many of those years.
Hitters used to hate to face him. That's outside. Those are the guys about even our pitchers. I talk to the opposing hitters about our guys, and they'll give you the right line.
Yeah.
They'll tell you, hey, he's pretty good, or hey, he's overrated.
That one had the corner. That didn't think it, but it did.
Well, Manny Gonzalez had a good game last night, and Ben Mays had a good game today.
That one a 95, and in the good closer days for Wilhelmsen, he had a nose-to-toes curveball that was very difficult to deal with. These days, he depends more on that fastball. He will throw the curveball. It's just not quite that sharp.
Seventh inning stretch. We trail it by 1. Mitch Moreland will lead it off for the Wranglers. Takes ball 1. Only 0 for 1 with a couple of walks, one of them intentional. One ball, one strike. $29,023 in attendance this afternoon.
It's a day game and biggest crowd of the series. Of course, there was a few weather issues.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They had 25,800 last night with all those weather.
I know.
And forecasted. Siri was very adamant about it.
Well,
when I talked to her.
She was right on.
Oh, she was. Yeah, she said. I asked what the weather in Arlington, Texas would be. She came back. She said, "Bad day for Texas." Jazz got a piece of it. And got a piece of the honor. Well, I had to get him pretty good because he never flinches hardly when he gets hit.
It's like he's looking at his throwing hand. Couldn't have felt too good. Catchers don't want to make a fist. They want to keep that hand as loose as possible for situations just like that.
Here you go. One out.
Hard breaking slider, and Moreland down on strikes. Good stop by Navarro, who puts a tag on him.
Toughest catcher I ever saw in my career. As far as taking the foul tips and just brushing them off was A.J. Pierzynski. And he's got the record for, I think, 12 consecutive years with 1,000 or more innings called. And he's a big man. He occupied a lot of space.
That is an exceptionally tough position to play because of all the things that are involved with it. You got to know. You got to know every hitter on the other team. You have to know all of your pitchers and what they like and what they don't like. You have to know every one of the other pitchers because you have to hit, and you get beaten up in the process.
A couple other guys that were tough too. We talked about him earlier. Ivan Rodriguez was another tough one.
Rick Dempsey, I think, played for 24 years.
Dempsey, I was going to say Dempsey and Munson.
Yeah.
Those four are just about as tough as he got.
Jake Diekman loosening in the pen.
Elvis 0 for 3. Fly out to left. 5-4 fielder's choice, and then a 5 unassisted ground ball.
We saw Diekman in this series on in relief of Colby Lewis. Able to run on 2 hits.
Come back and get him. 3-1. Six runs, 10 hits, 2 errors for them. 5 runs, 10 hits, no errors for us. We have left 7. They have left 8. Once again, the payoff. Got it. 2 down.
White Sox Charities invites fans to celebrate 25 years of giving with $25 for 25. Donate $25 or more on May 18th and 19th with a chance to win White Sox prizes, including autographed items and experiences. For more information and participate, visit whitesox.com/Sox25.
So here's Drew Stubbs making his first plate appearance of this game. They mentioned off day tomorrow in New York, and then Friday, first of that 3-game set. Chris Sale against Luis Severino. There's a strike. In game 2 on Saturday, be Jose Quintana against Ivan Nova. And in the finale of this road trip, in a 3-game set against the Yankees, Miguel Gonzalez against Masahiro Tanaka. Nice inning for Dan. Couple of strikeouts, ground out, and we're into the 8th. We need 1 to tie.
Greater coverage of baseball. Lorenzo Cain hit 3 home runs, the 7th player in Royal history to 3 home runs, but they came up short 10-7 to the Yankees. And the Atlanta Braves at 1-16. Just a terrible start at home. Worst home start since the 1913 New York Yankees. We get a new pitcher coming in the ball game, and it is tall left-hander Jake Diekman. Out for the 17th time. 7 holds, which is good. 16 strikeouts in 12 innings, which is good. He's a hard-throwing left-hander, and when we saw him in the opener, he had trouble getting the ball consistently over the plate. Left after a third of an inning, gave way to Tony Barnett.
So here's Avi. We trail it 6-5. Now they were talking about those stories in the paper lately about Freddie Gonzalez getting fired in Atlanta. It's that old story. If you don't have the horses, you're not going to win any races.
He traded away most of his entire team.
Yeah. When they gave him something down there, he did a good job. He's a good manager.
Yeah, he is. And he won't have any trouble getting another job.
Avi 0 for 3. And the count 2-1. Get yourself a knock. Keep that hitting streak going. Right there. 2-2.
Diekman came over in the same trade that brought him Cole Hamels on a player deal with Philadelphia at the trading deadline last year.
Just fouled. Dadgummit. That was close.
Diekman originally a first-round draft pick of the Houston Astros. That was in 2010. Then Texas got him in the Rule 5 draft as he was taken off the 40-man roster.
A full count. Davziel. Outfield slightly to the right. Watch out.
Well, we're going to check that because what I was telling you was the history of Delano DeShields, who is not pitching. Diekman originally selected by Philadelphia in the 30th round.
One out.
96 on the inside corner, and it just froze him. Perfect pitch. Jones and Carroll.
Here's Deanna. He's 2 for 3. An infield single and a double.
Texas bullpen quiet, at least for the moment. It's all Diekman.
That ball hit hard, but right at Stubbs. That'll bring up Saladino, who's 1 for 3. Hit a big 2-out RBI single in the 6th. Point that put us up 5-4. Play a little game with him up there, Tyler. Have a little fun. It's one and light him up. Just tuning in, we scored 1 in the 3rd. They scored 2 in the 3rd. We scored 3 in the 4th. Solo homer by Todd Frazier. His 11th. And RBIs, I'm to check it, a single by Cabrera, then a 2-run homer by Brett Laurie. And of course, Todd. Bargan's going to get the shot of it for those of you who did not see it when he went in to the seats hard. There's a shot, base hit to the boy Tyler. And if you missed that, take another look at it.
in the shift. He had a long way to go. Takes a head-first dive. And then hits his face on the armrest of a chair, a metal armrest.
5 stitches in his lip, where we heard that his teeth went through his lip. One thing about Todd Frazier, you need somebody in foxhole with you. He's the guy you want. Adam takes a strike.
And you would assume, because he is day to day after that off day tomorrow, if humanly possible, he's in the lineup for the Yankee series.
Oh, Herm will find some way to get him in there.
I think Herm would have to find some way to get him out of there if he's okay.
Well, he'd rather be in that lineup
Yeah.
playing than be in the dugout with Dr. Payne. Two-one pitch.
Now the Ranger bullpen is going. Sam Dyson. Seen him in this series, and he threw the ball pretty well.
There is ball 4, so Tyler moves down to second, and with 2 out. Austin Jackson.
And you would think that's going to be it for Diekman. No, it appears he's going to stay in against Jackson. MLB.TV Premium, the #1 streaming sports service, delivers every out-of-market game live in HD on over 400 supported devices. It includes a free subscription to @Bat Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions apply, so visit MLB.TV for details.
On August or September, during the hunt, which they will be, that would have been the last man for Diekman.
You would think so, especially as well as Dyson threw when we saw him.
But they got to find out. It's just like we were talking about the other day. One of the stats that's not talked about nearly enough is, can a guy pitch from behind? Another stat, obviously, that is talked about a lot more, is we got to find out how he is under the heat.
But so far, he's having some problem finding the plate.
Well, Austin in a good spot at 2-0.
Well, you pretty much know you're going to get a fastball, or you would certainly suspect so.
Well, you got to sit dead red, no question. And there he caught a break. But Austin was looking for it, got it, and couldn't pull the trigger. Three and one. Sometimes that happens. You're up there and you get a 2-0 count. You know it's coming. And for some reason you're looking for it, you get it, and you just can't be pulled.
Jose Abreu waiting for his opportunity if Austin can keep it alive.
So a full count. Well, he had some pitches to hit. He just couldn't pull the trigger, and we still trail at 6-5.
Chuck. Time now for our Xfinity high-speed action replay, and it comes off the bat of Adrian Beltre. He's got an opportunity to put the Rangers on top. He does just that, driving in his team-leading 25th run of the year, this coming in the 6th inning, and that's where it stands. A one-run game as Scott Carroll comes in. On for the 3rd time, and a tough outing last night. 3rd of an inning. 3 runs, 2 hits, and a walk.
Here's Bobby Wilson. He's 1 for 2 with a sacrifice bunt. We mentioned those 3 games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. Friday and Saturday, the game will be over Comcast Sportsnet. And on Sunday, it'll be over WGN. Quickly 0-2. Gap out there in right center.
Went right into the Sox dugout. And everybody appears to be okay.
The ball hit hard. The roller. Melky's there. That's a hang with him. Ball was scalded.
Wilson has hit the ball pretty hard in this series and laid down some excellent bunts. Takes Melky to the wall.
Back to the top of the order. Rougned Odor. 0 for 4 today, but he did get on the fielder's choice, stole a base, and scored a run. And let it go. It's foul.
He did that once in the series. It was a base hit. And give him a little credit because he figures if they're going to severely shift, those will take advantage of it. If that ball is fair, just like the last time, there's no way in the world you can get him.
One and one to count to the 22-year-old Mazzara. 3rd place hitter in this lineup. He's 21.
Odor got hurt. He came out of the box, stumbled. And unless he just turned the ankle, appears to be okay. Stumbled. So he is all right. Just no chance after that.
So 2 out. And here's Desmond. He's 2 for 3 today with 2 RBIs and 2 runs scored. So he's been a pain in the derriere. He's driven in 6 runs in the series. Of course, our Todd Frazier, well, he's driven in 10 runs in this series. Todd with a homer today, if you're just joining us, number 11. And he now has 31 knocked in. He's going to run right on by his numbers last year for the Reds.
Hit 35 of them. And assuming that he's not going to miss much of any time, he's in line for yet another big year.
Big hack. Fouls that one away. Well, on the top of the 9th, we got the right guys coming up. Abreu to lead it off, and Sanchez hitting in Frazier's slot. Cabrera, Laurie, Avi, and hopefully a couple more. He gone. Good inning for Scott Carroll. 1, 2, 3, and we're into the 9th. We need one to tie. Friday, Brett Laurie and our Sox head into Yankee Stadium in the Bronx to face those Bronx Bombers. Joining me in the booth will be MLB Network analyst Dan Plesac. Starting Friday at 6 on CSN.
Sam Dyson coming in the ball game, so the normal closer has worked a couple days in a row, and Sean Tollison will not be used, at least for the moment. On for the 17th time, 9 holds and a 2.25 ERA. We saw Dyson in the series. He threw the ball pretty well. And left-handers, surprisingly, much worse against him than right-handers. And he's got to deal with a very powerful right-hander leading it off.
Abreu 2 for 4 today. And that hit him. He didn't want to do that.
Jose has been hit a lot this year and hit off that same lead elbow. He says he feels uncomfortable, doesn't want to get armored up on the lead elbow. So Abreu aboard, carrying with him the tying run. Hit for the 5th time. he just pounds on that spot that he was hit.
Carlos, got to do something, buddy. Takes first pitch strike. When Todd had to leave, Carlos took his place. He's 0 for 2. Grounded to second and grounded to first. Gap out there in right center and plenty of room between Mazzaro and that right field line. Piece of that. Just thinking, I loved it when they had good bench jockeys. Those days are gone.
Nope, you can't do that anymore. Tyson, who came over from Miami at the trading deadline last year.
High and wide at 96.
He can get it up there, but he's not used to closing, and that's not an easy task. He has 2 major league saves in his career.
'25, 6, and 27. 3 toughest outs to get.
The people don't realize, because you can pitch in the 7th or you're a great setup man in the 8th, the 9th is completely different.
Full count.
Melky in the on deck circle. And Ramos, the left-hander, loosening in the path.
Payoff pitch. Here he goes. Strike him out, throw him out, 2 down.
We've been talking about Wilson's defensive prowess all series, and he throws it right on the button. Doesn't have an overpowering arm, but he does have a very quick release. And turns into a terrific play.
That's the 50th double play they have turned this year. They're killing everybody in that department.
He had 169 last year.
Melky 2 for 4. 2 sharp singles, 2 runs scored. And Ellis has got him, and this ball game is over. So the Sox led by 5 going into the 8th inning last night. They scored 7 in the 8th, come back and win that game 13-11. We had the lead in this ball game, so and we had bullpen has been great all year, except last night A little bit the night before, and today gave up some runs.
Well, unfortunately, losing the series to Texas, it's 4-2 for the season series. The Sox will take that with them on to New York. So a tough series. Texas came back in each and every game,
Yes,
and they won
did.
2 of them.
Two good teams.
Yep.
Well, Steve, have a nice 5 days off, buddy.
Thank you.
So for my partner Steve Stone, our director Jim Angio, our producer John Walgren, our associate producer Dave Ross, our technical manager Mark Harper, also the executive producer Jim Corno Jr., and for Scotty, for Gary, for Vernon, for Kenny, for Pat. This is the Hawk. So long, everybody. Coming up next, Subaru Postgame Load with Chuck and Bill. You've been watching White Sox baseball on Comcast Sportsnet.